So with that, I'm very happy to introduce my good friend Bryan Soltis. Bryan is a cloud solution architect with Microsoft. He can give his full title and everything around that, but
main thing is the why.
He spells his name correctly. Spell it correctly with an I, not a Y. We've known each other for probably 10 years.
No, we're like 12 years.
12 years? Because our worlds used to kind of be in the same space.
13, 12, 13.
He worked at Kensco, which is a .NET CMS that Bitstream uses all the time. And for some reason, he decides to live in Florida, which is a pretty good choice, actually. So he's traveled up here from Florida yesterday to be here to speak with us at my request. And he's a nationally recognized speaker. He speaks a lot of different conferences. Fun fact, he's also a grandpa. I get to make fun of him for that. So
now I have to lead with that explanation.
Yes.
So that's okay then.
So Bryan, I will let you take it away. We're here to talk about the Azure Naming Tool that he's behind. So
well, thank you, Bryan. Appreciate it. So yes, I am a grandfather. I had a daughter at 18, and despite my best efforts, she had a son at 19, and she since had another daughter. So I have 2 grandkids. So my name is Bryan Soltis. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. Specifically, I work for Microsoft Germany. I live in the US. It's kind of complicated. We have these German customers in the US. They need support. If a US person supports them, the US people want the revenue. Doesn't work that way when you come to an accountant. On the German team, I support these customers in the US, and I specifically focus on application development. And to give you a little background, I care about naming things in Azure. I think you should have a good naming convention, and I think you should govern what you deploy in Azure. But honestly, I'm a developer. That's some networking guy's problem, most likely. It's not really my issue. But I was a part of a team that made something internally. And I'm kind of getting to my own spoiler alert. Let me get to the story, and then we'll get there first. Before I jump into that, I want to see, this is where we're going to have a small challenge. So you're going to see me jump back and forth because I need to do this. So as Bryan said, I live in Florida. This is Florida. That's Miami. That's Orlando. I live way over here. If I used Bing Maps, then you would see where I live. So that's why I use Google Maps or another company's maps. But no, I live way over here. This line, it's an imaginary line. This is all Central Time. So now you know there's this part of Florida is in Central Time, or fake time, as my friends like to call it, including Bryan. No, I do not go to Florida or Miami very often because this is a 7-hour drive, and that is, oh my God, I don't even know how far that would be, like 13 hours. So that's where I live. And if you want to know why I live in Florida, get Bryan to show you some of the pictures I send him in, I don't know, January. And he sends me a pile of snow this high, and I send him a picture of a beer by the water, and that beer's about that high. And that's why I live in Florida. So let me throw that back over here. So, did anybody get the reference, at least? I thought about this when I made the name. How many people understand the immediate reference? 1, 2, 3. So, a third? Okay. This is a movie called Anchorman. This is Ron Burgundy. This is based in the 70s, like late 70s. In San Diego, he's an anchorman, and it's a very funny movie. And this is Champ. And Champ, in this exact scene, is bromancing it out with Ron. And he says, when all this goes over, I think you and I should get an apartment together. That's the reference for the title of the talk. So at least you learned that too. So we are bridging all kinds of gaps here. Let me get this back up. Nope, not that one. Maybe that one. There we go. All right. So now we're going to start with a story. The story starts with you create an Azure subscription. It's amazing. You have it. Actually, before I start the story, I need to know who is a developer. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Who is an infrastructure person? Got to help you. Okay. All right. The talk is about the Azure Naming Tool, and I'll get into what it is. I can take the talk in a number of ways. I can do development-centric things. I can keep it higher level. I can get into the philosophical reasons of why you need a naming convention, which gets in more to the networking side. feel free to ask questions because I don't really know what I'm going to show you when it comes to the demo. It really depends on what you want to see and what I think would land well with the crowd. But at least now I know it's kind of half and half. So we'll split it half and half. We'll do it that way. So this is Ron Burgundy. He has just said something very funny on the news. But you've created an Azure subscription. Everything is great. Then you let people make some things in Azure. I had to tell Bryan, this is an actual picture, according to the internet, of Grand Rapids Beer Fest. Yep. And if you need another speaker, whenever the Grand Rapids Beer Fest is, I'll be glad to come up and speak again. It's only in February. Only in February? Nope. Sorry. Look at the coast. True. Nope. But there's a lion, so God help him. He's there. He's in there. So you let people make things. Great. And then you have no idea what happened because everyone has made a million things and no one has named anything logically, and you don't know what anything is. And you tell yourself, boy, that escalated quickly. And then you cry because you don't know what anything is, and that's the end of the story. And that sucks. And I work with a lot of companies, German ones mostly, all over the US and even the world, and this same story happens again and again and again and again. So what should have happened is you should have defined a naming convention. And then you need to make sure everyone uses it. And then you don't go crazy. And you don't cry. And you get to sleep at night. And that's really what happened. So there was a engineer from Microsoft. He works on what's called the Fast Track team. They kind of help specific type of companies implement a specific type of system. He works in the government space, and the government space is, does anybody work like in DoD or government space? No. They got a lot of rules. It's the opposite of Fast Track, right? What's that? It's the opposite of Fast Track. Well, ironically, I think that's who they help the most. Right, because they need to help the most. I don't know. But Jason is a virtual desktop guy. He's a really smart guy. He deals with a lot of customers, and they have to implement a lot of things, and they have a lot of naming conventions. And if you go to our website back in the day, you would go to our best practices, and it says, here's a spreadsheet. It says, you should have a naming convention. Here's how you should structure it. Here's a spreadsheet. And he said, that sucks. And so he came up with the Azure Naming Tool. And it was a PowerShell batch script collection. I don't know what you call that. But you would go into PowerShell and you would say, these are my environments. These are my things I'm going to create. These are my projects. And you fill out, you'd enter into all these PowerShell prompts your answers to wherever it was. And then the PowerShell script would go, boom, here's an HTML page. And then someone could go to that HTML page and they could generate a name based off of whatever you entered. And that ran for like a year or so. And it got actually listed as part of our cloud adoption framework. And because it was something, which was better than an Excel file, and so people started using it, they got some feedback. Then we also do an internal hackathon at Microsoft once a year. And you can, as a Microsoft employee, you can join any team you want to join. Like if you see something interesting, you can join that hackathon team. If someone made a project for that hackathon team, if you have a good idea, you could say, hey, I think I have a good idea of using Teams and AI to do something. And if other people are interested, then you all kind of meet for 3 or 4 days and you hack away and figure what you make. I was just wanting to be a part of a hackathon. I was clicking through and I was like, naming tool. I deal with names sometimes. Let's check that out. So I joined this hackathon team. And was only like 3 of us because not a lot of people were interested in it. And I'm staring at it and I'm looking at this tool and Jason's kind of describing what it does. And I'm like, I think this should be rewritten. And so we spent about a day trying to do what he wanted to do with the PowerShell. And I was like, I think I'm just going to rewrite this whole thing. So I completely rewrote the entire application as a .NET Core Blazor server application. And it is called the Azure Naming Tool. I'm not a graphic designer, but this is my logo that I made. we had to be real careful. You can't just use the word Azure. You got to go to the Azure logo or the Azure branding guidelines. This is a very specific color of blue. This is a very specific font. You can't just use it. And really, we never got approval. So one day we're probably going to be like, not the right font, and they're going to make us change it. But until then, it doesn't matter. But why would you want to use the Azure Naming Tool? It's a simple web-based utility, and it's a very easy UI for someone to do whatever it is they want to do. It's now part of the best practices for the Cloud Adoption Framework. It's free. It's 100% open source. It can be hosted anywhere you want it to work. And the idea is you take the tool and you deploy it somewhere. It's basically a .NET application that you deploy. It's completely self-contained, and everything you do is all within it. If you want to run it in Azure, cool. Make our stock price go up more. Thanks. If you want to run it in Azure free, also cool. I have lots of free stuff running in Azure. I would do that if I were you. If you want to run it as a container, because you're into that kind of thing, you could do that. You could run it as a regular website. It's really designed to be as universal as possible with zero dependencies on anything else. So that was all part of the design. And because of that, it's completely self-contained. So there's no requirements on anything. It doesn't even have to have internet connectivity. You can download it. You could run it on an internal network if that's what you wanted to do. You can do that. And it's constantly being updated by, I wasn't sure which side of the screen I was on, so it's this guy. So I'm constantly updating it. I think we released version 2.0 it's on the website, because I just made the timeline. It's on the website. That was like a year and a half ago, and I have 2.8, which I might show you, but it's not released yet. We'll see if we get to there. But the main features of it, again, simple UI. What's really nice about it is the entire tool has an API on the back end. So anything you can do on the website, you can absolutely extend with an API in any system that you want to extend to. And it has a built-in API security layer that if you're really interested in, I'll be glad to dig into, but just know it randomly generates an API key, so every API call requires that key. So depending on where you run it, you could do that. It has, whenever you have a naming convention, you often have what are called components of your name. It'll be like the location, whatever it is you're creating, the project it's for, and the environment that it's in. Those are each components. The location will be a component. The region, or that's the same thing. The thing you're creating is a component. Anyway, it has 8 of those built in, but then you have the ability to create your own custom components inside of there. And I'll show you all this in a demo. It logs everything that happens in the site. So you can have a history of who changed, or of when a component got changed, and then which names have been created. You have a log of all that. It has webhook support, because somebody somewhere asked for that. So when a name gets generated, you can actually post that generated name out to a webhook somewhere if you wanted to know that for whatever reason. And whenever we publish updates to everything's in GitHub. It's 100% open source, 100% of the code. There are no credentials or anything in that code. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. How many people use GitHub on a regular basis? How many people use GitHub Enterprise on a regular basis? All right, so GitHub Enterprise has some really cool features that developers just love. Is when you check in your code, it will go, this isn't going to get checked in because you have secrets defined here and they should be in somewhere else. And so it stops all that kind of stuff from happening. When you work for Microsoft and you put things in there, you get those applied. So the code itself it's completely vanilla code that anybody can download. Feel free to change it. If you're going to change it and it's cool, please do a PR so we can make it better. But whenever we do push out an update, the tool actually, every time you start it, it checks GitHub to see is there a new version of it, and it'll prompt you and say, hey, you're on version 2.6, there's now 2.7, and you can go through the upgrade process if you want. And I'm working on identity support, but we'll see if we get to there. And then now we're to the demo part. So any questions so far? Does anybody deal with naming conventions? Probably should ask that question to begin with. Okay, how many people enjoy dealing with naming conventions? How many people would love a tool to help them with naming conventions? Okay, there we go. All right, so yes.
Really quick, was just the timeline, was this 2 open hacks ago that you did this?
Yes, because last year we did enhancements to the open hack. So this is the version history. I gotta throw it over there. Thanks. So let's. How am I gonna do that? Okay, I need to find my mouse over here. Okay, this is what's gonna be the fun stuff because I'm gonna have to turn. So we released the original one on June 20. That was when we did 2.0. We worked on that in June of 2021. That was when the original open hack was in, well, was it August, whatever, June or August or October, whatever it was in 2021. And it took us about, I rewrote what Jason originally had in about 3 days. It took about like another 7-8 months to get it more than what he had to where I thought it was a good tool and that it would actually do what it wants to do. And then since then, we've released new versions and everything. I can't. Okay, so we're going to have to do this. And I'm just going to have to find this over here. Okay, so every version that I've released, I've pushed out. Oh, sorry, it's all on one big page. Let me scroll down. Oh, it doesn't matter. I can show you any of them. I try to say what is in each version. And so I try to document every version I do. I really try to do this as a real thing and as a real almost product, because once you go to work to somewhere at Microsoft, and before, a long time ago, I worked at a company, like a custom software company, and I built a lot of things for a lot of different companies. And then I went to go work at a product company, and I was a technical evangelist. And I really just found ways to hang out with my friends and travel around the world. Did pretty good at it too for 4 years. But then I decided to go work at Microsoft, and I'm an architect, so I don't really build anything. I conceptualize things and I help people understand how things fit together. And I'm quite good at that. I understand how to, especially from a development perspective, how you can get different systems talking to each other, make things happen. I build proof of concepts, but I don't ever build anything real that anything would really use. So when I took this, Jason was more than happy to have me be the developer. He's like, yes. He does virtual desktops. He's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Yes. And we continue to manage it together. And there's another gentleman, Jonathan, he kind of helps as well, but it's not really Jason and I. He kind of let me be I am the development arm of the Azure Naming Tool. And as such, I really try to run it like a real product. I think of it that way. We collect feedback that no one's given us yet, but we get a lot of GitHub issues that people report, and then we respond to them, and we have a backlog that I manage. I can show you that if you want to see it. I do this so I learn how like a real product is working, because I'm working with real companies and they have real products, and so it helps me to do that. I'm using GitHub a lot more than just POCs and learning about GitHub. I'm using it for things that I hadn't used before, building GitHub actions and secrets and lots of things like that. But I also try to think of it, because I worked at a product company, I know how it is when you get updates and we get deployments. I want to let people know about that, and I really try to document it the best that I can. I guarantee you will find more than 100 spelling errors, but I really do my best to try. But I'm not very good at typing sometimes. But I try to track all of this stuff, and so that is the kind of history of it. I can go back. So I actually just added this page not long ago of the current version and like the history of what's going on. But a lot of things in this, if you don't know this, these hackathons that happen inside of Microsoft, I wouldn't say I was pining away for ways to fill a void in my life with Azure, with naming things in Azure. Now I care a lot more. I see it's a valid need. I do this a lot too, because I get a lot of development experience and Yale experience and stuff like that. But these hackathons that we do internally are really what are a lot of things that you as an end user, a consumer of our services, you're getting the benefit of it, because eventually we want this to be integrated. We haven't even seen the tool yet. Sorry, that's not very cool. What I'm about to show you, we want that to be integrated into the portal. Like that's really our end goal if we could ever get there, and that's where we have a lot of innovation comes from, are these internal hackathons. So it's a really cool thing. And even if it's not the Microsoft hackathon, we put on hackathons for the community, and they're a great way for you to really expand your skills and to really learn a lot or explore areas that you never would have ever dreamed you would ever go into. And it's a really cool thing that I would highly recommend if anyone's interested in doing a hackathon. But all the way back, it was January. It was 2021 hackathons when I first joined. I think it was that the year before that is when Jason first made it. I think it was in 2020. I think it's when he first made it. And then since then, we've had a lot of releases. And now I basically control all the releases because I'm doing all the development now. I do talk to Jay. He's not a developer. He understands because he can write PowerShell. He doesn't do .NET code, but I still cover it with him all the time, and I document it, and it's open source. So if I get hit by the bus, then at least someone knows what's going on with this. But let's see. I don't want to do that. Let's jump into the tool itself. So this is what the tool looks like as it refreshes in my thing. So let me hit that again. So I happen to have this running in Azure App Service, and I have it protected by Azure Authentication, so Azure AD Authentication. So you can't get to this URL unless you authenticate against the Azure tenant that I'm in. So, but this is the tool, and this is what it looks like. If I have to tell these stories because I've known him so long, so there are all these stories. I don't know how many years did you lay into me about dark mode? It might be a decade. I don't know. It was a long time, and I'm like, why would anyone ever want dark mode? And now the world is dark mode. You don't have dark mode. But this side is actually presents a little bit better. But it does have a dark mode if you do want it. So anyway, this is the basic site, and I'm not logged in. And the idea is an admin would come into this site, define the naming structure. So let me I think I have that open right here. It's over there. So in our documentation, in our best practices in the Cloud Adoption Framework, we basically tell you about, we don't tell you exactly what to do for your naming convention because it's going to be different for everybody, but we stress to you, you need a naming convention. And the way I describe it to customers is anybody in your organization should be able to look at the name of something and have some idea of what it's for. They should know where it is, who it's for, what it does. In my opinion, that's what your naming convention should be. Now, how granular you want to make that is really up to you. But the main thing is you need to find a naming convention and you need to ensure people follow it when they make things in Azure. That's what the tool is all about. That chair is very not nice to me on video, on the microphone. So the tool itself, let's see. It's hard because I want to show you how it works, but I want to tell you different things. It has these main pages. So we have the home page, which kind of tells you about the tool and all the pages in it. We have the admin area, which I'll go to in a moment. We have an instructions page that tells you how everything in the site works. We have the configuration page, which will show you the current naming convention that's been configured. There's a reference page that will show you a sample name for using the convention that's there. It will show you what a sample name is. The generate page is where you go to generate a name, and then the generated name logs is all the names that have been generated. We have a Twitter account that I post to whenever we do updates, and if you want to see that, you can choose whether or not to see the latest news directly inside of here. So there's that. So the admin, whenever you first launch the site, it will force you to set an admin password. And all of this data is stored in JSON files within the site itself. So in the file structure of the website, there's a lot of JSON files. And the JSON files contain the configuration of what people see, but also this information. We randomly, and hopefully this doesn't bore you, but I like to let people know these things. I randomly generate a salt key whenever you create the site. And then whatever password you put in there, your screen, when you enter your admin password for the first time, I take that salt key and I encrypt the value of the password in the file. And then there's other values that get encrypted with that same salt key. If someone really wanted to hack into you, they've already gotten all the way to your server, so technically they could decrypt that if you wanted to, but it's a free tool, and we didn't want a database and we didn't want a dependency in any other system because a lot of companies will set this up internally and it'll never be even exposed to the internet. So we had to make it completely self-contained. But in the admin area, you have a number of options available to you. Wow, you are just going to keep doing that. And this is running the current version of the site, because I know that's 2.7, so I can change the password. We randomly generate an API key. If you want to generate a new one, you can. If you want to set your own to whatever you want it to be, knock yourself out. The site uses a lot of caching, so there's a lot of data that will be cached. And it doesn't really matter what all this is. I'll explain it in a little bit, but it's just all the data that's reading from those files. And so it's keeping it in memory on the server, so it makes it faster. So it doesn't keep having to go to these files to read it. You can clear that cache data if you want to. And then we have a number of settings that as we've made the tool, certain people have wanted specific things, like by default, if you try to generate a name of something that already exists, it will say that's not a unique name. But somebody may decide they don't care and they want to allow you to do it. So you can turn that off. And the tool itself will see if it can connect to the internet. Every time it runs, it will try to determine, can I get to the internet? And it does that by, it tries to ping github.com. And if ping is disabled, like it is everywhere in the world, then it actually tries to download a 1 pixel file from GitHub. And if it can't do that, then it says, I'm not connected to the internet. And it doesn't do like a version check and some other things. Site still runs, it just doesn't auto update itself if we've published out new information. But you can turn that off if you want to, because we had someone that wanted that. And then this is the webhook. So if you generate a name, this is a sample post of what actually gets created behind the scenes of, this would be the sample name. I don't even know how he came up with that. Holy cow, my watch is like going crazy. But what got created and what was selected. So we can post this to a URL if that's what you want to do. So these are the current admin settings. But once you are an admin, I didn't really show you this, but the instructions basically give you details on each page of the site and what each one does, of like how to work with it and what each section is. And that's actually contextual. So the instruction page is everything, but if you were in the admin section, you can say, and it's just the admin instructions. So if you wanted to know what this stuff was, you can look in here, and it's basically explaining what all this different stuff is to you.
Do you have any limitations at how large of a data, or not a database because it's a file, but how large of a customer you can support with this?
Customer you could support. You could put anybody you wanted to in there. The only limit on anything, I guess technically if your log files got so big you would fill up the space it was running. But I don't know how you would ever do that. The only limits are on the names you're generating themselves. So I'll show you that in a moment, but
I guess I was just wondering if you're dumping all that to like a JSON file and you're doing the name. I'm going to derail it, sorry.
That's okay.
Just doing a check to see if it's unique or not. That could probably get unwieldy.
Not
hundreds of them.
It could be. I mean, you're reading JSON. When the site loads up, it's going to pull that JSON and keep it in memory.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, so the check is fast. But if you had generated tens of thousands of names, then yes.
I think he's hoping it's part of the portal.
There's some big asterisks I'm about to draw here. You ready?
I was just curious.
No. This is it's a free tool, and it's open source, and we try to do as much as we can with that. And if you have suggestions, we would love to hear them, because we're constantly. I'll show you that very quickly before I get deeper into the tool, because I think it's important.
I just hadn't seen it done that way, so I was curious.
There's some aspects of it that I know are different, and they're not like, oh, you would say that to a database. I don't want you to have a database.
Right. No,
it's done very specifically. So this is, we usually do, I mean, click on that file. We usually take the GitHub issues that get submitted into the Cloud Adoption Framework. And then this is a private project that we have. And this is where we track all that we are doing. And so we'll put them in there and we'll try to address that. But I mean, this is what we've done over the last year. Wow, that's really strange. But I mean, we've implemented like 13 different things, like lots of different stuff. And some of these they came up in conversation. Some of them people just put in issues. That, I mean, I've never thought about that, but you almost like maybe there's a limit that would need to be implemented. I don't know. I don't know how I would do that yet.
Well, I just think
But
we got Meyer here. Meyer tried to use this. It'd be really tough.
I think I'm wondering maybe less about just because I'm dealing with the server system, less about file size, more about concurrent users trying to update that file.
yeah.
You gotta do some blocking.
So, and that's okay. So, okay.
But that's totally
So to the point though, the tool does not create anything in Azure.
Just creates a.
It just gives you a name to use. We haven't actually made it to show you what the tool does, but I will get, and that's my fault too. I'm derailing us too. I like to talk. But the tool does nothing in Azure. It only produces a name that you would use when you make something in Azure. But to your point, if a lot of people did this, there is, when it saves things in memory, so the lookup would be rather fast. But if you're creating, it has to write that to the file, and then it invalidates the cache. So the next call for that would have to pull it again. That write to, we came into a problem of basically someone pounding away at their own site with the API. And I put like a 10-time retry with like a 50 millisecond delay to try to prevent that. But in the end, if you're gonna hack your own stuff, then I guess have fun. But I mean, we'll try to make it better, and we're certainly open to options. Yeah, like I don't have a good solution for that yet, but I would love any recommendation. Yeah, I'm sure you'll tell me. So, and this is what he wants to talk about, not like anything interesting.
This is not a critique your tool.
No, it's all good. I should have reset my configuration real quick. Sorry, let me do that. So after you do your configuration, you can export it to JSON and save that as backup, and you can then import it if you need to. I just completely reset mine all the way back to the default, so you can see what it looks like. So are you going to be able to see if I zoom out? That's the real question. Tell me when it's too small. Is that okay? Okay. Oh, I did one more. And one more. And one more. All right, I'll go. I was like, oh my God, that's way too much. I want to try going. Okay. All right. So these are the default components. So as an administrator, I can choose what is the order of the items that make up a naming convention. So after you have a meeting of the minds within your organization, you decide this is what our naming convention is going to be. Your admin would come in and they would decide, we always want the resource type first and then the location or whatever. Or maybe you want the location first. It's not drag and drop. I don't know how to do that yet. It just works this way and we'll make it better. But maybe you want the location first. Maybe you're not going to use units and departments, so you can disable that one. You're not going to use orgs. Yeah, no, I'm messing the whole up.
This is your default, what we would see if we installed this today.
You would see this, yes. We would like to make this, I personally would like to make it a little bit better. But let's say we're going to make it simple, we're going to take this down to the project. Function is kind of a legacy thing, but we'll just do this. So we decide our naming convention is the location where it's deployed, the project it's for. I took away the resource type. Oops. It's kind of an important one. Let's add that one back. So doesn't matter, we'll put that one second, whatever. So it's the location, the resource type, the environment, and the instance. With this, you would define your naming convention. And then what you're going to do is you're going to decide what options someone has for each of these things, except for location and resource types. We are pushing those out to you because you can't just use any location you want. These are Azure locations. And the resource types are very specific because every resource type has a lot of validation that goes against it. Certain resource types can't take characters. They have to be a minimum length, there's a maximum length, and there is a block of regex about this big for every one of those that Jason writes manually. If there's ever a problem with the regex, it's because he has to do it manually because there's nowhere internal for us to get this information. So he figures out the regex and he writes it. and Jason handles the data, and I handle the website because he can enjoy all the regex he wants. So I'm not going to do that. But for each one of these, in this case, I have location, resource type, projects, environments. So down here, I see everything because I'm the admin. So I could actually add options for the function and org and stuff if I wanted to, but they would never show up for the user because they're not enabled. But for the environments, we populate all these with some defaults. So these are default environments. You can add your own, you can change these, you can do whatever you want to, but these are the default environments. So let's say you have UAT2, or I don't know, whatever. Let's see, we'll say, so I can add another one, it'll be UAT2. And I don't know why, but it's going to be UAT2. And so I can add that, and I can decide where it shows up in the list. So you can do this. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is I'm reading that JSON of resource environments.json, and then I'm updating it, writing it back, and I'm pulling it back in memory again. And so that's what's happening. You'll see where these come into play in the generate page. So all of these basically work exactly the same. So like orgs, it's going to work. We put a sample org in there. There's projects. We have a sample project in there, and you can add, or whatever. There's two that are different. One is locations. You cannot add a location. You can only do this, but you can change if you don't like the abbreviation. You can say, if you didn't want Australia Central, you could say ACR, I don't know, whatever it is you felt like doing. Another big thing is if you never wanted someone to generate something, you could like say, let's take Australia out. No one in your organization is ever going to deploy to Australia, so you only want those to be in the list, so you can remove them if you want to. But you can't add or delete these locations. They're because these are controlled by what we have as Microsoft as a company, so you can't do that. And the resource types are different because they have very specific settings that you can't change. Like this has to be this for many reasons. You can change the short name, and we have the ability to say for this resource type, if it's enabled, like location is enabled, I can say for this resource type, it can be optional. So when someone goes to generate a name, they don't have to choose a location for that resource type if you want it to be. You can say excluded. So for that resource type, I'm going to exclude, instance. So if I were to ever try to go create that name for analysis services server, location would be optional, and it won't even show them whatever one I just selected. What did I pick? Thanks, instance. It won't even show them that field because it won't be required, and it will allow them to generate the name. If it's not optional, they have to fill in that value. Okay. You can also do that on a global level. Well, I won't worry about that. There's more you can do with that, but you can't change a lot of this because there's a lot of regex and stuff behind the scenes on the resource types themselves. So they're kind of important. For everything in here, you have the ability to export the configuration, and this will make a JSON file. Let's see if I can do this. Oh my God. All right, there's gonna be a lot of other stuff in my downloads. I don't think there's anything bad, but let's see. It opened over here anyway. Whew. Save me. Of course, now I can't find the mouse, but it's on the screen. There we go. So let's do this. Open with. I mean, if you really like JSON, you can get your JSON on. That's the configuration for the environment. That's what's actually in the JSON file behind the scenes. So you can export these and import them in, which is very handy if you want to back up your configuration. You can also do it on a completely global level. And so I can export the entire configuration of the entire site, which is what we recommend when you do an upgrade. You export it, do the upgrade, then do an import. That way you're not going to lose all your stuff. We also have the ability to create a custom component, and this is a fairly new feature. Oh, sorry, let me do this one real quick. The default delimiter that's going to use between the components, the default's a dash. Some people want an underscore. I personally use none because I don't want one, but you will do this and you can choose whatever these 4 characters, and the site will attempt to make the name, but if that resource type doesn't allow a dot, then it will just take that out and then try to create the name again, try to validate again. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. But you also have the ability to, am I like 15 minutes? Is that 15? Wow, okay. I need to quit talking. You can make your own custom component if you want to. And we added a new capability. So this could be a custom one, and I cannot spell it right. Told you. And that will be a standard one. And so I can add this to the mix, and then let me just add it in anywhere just so you can see it. And so here, you can now add your own custom components in of whatever value you want it to be, and it'll be a list of things. And then we recently added a new thing called a free text. So someone could just type in any text they want to. That's okay, I'm gonna leave it mistyped because that's just how I roll. And there's like a free text. So all of this being said, if someone defines the configuration, the reference page will actually generate a bunch of sample names. Or apparently, am I clicking on? I'm clicking in, aren't I? Yeah, it's a big page that does a lot. It's taking your default configuration, and then for every resource type, it's giving you a sample name that would be and what components would be there. It's not doing the optional components because they're optional, and it's doing anything that's excluded. But this is where you see the regex stuff for every resource type. You'll know what's kind of happening. I don't really use this page, but people say they like it, so it's a way to kind of see what something would do. But the real thing to do is you come into here and you make a page, and this is what your users would do. Let's say I wanted to make I always pick something with like random regex too, an IoT hub, because there's IoT devices sitting right over there. So I do this, and so here, if I really want to see those, you can see these are the naming guidelines behind the scenes. Yeah, this is all Jason, that ain't me. But he figures out all this stuff, but these are excluded, that's optional, and it has to be at least 50, or it can't be more than 50, 30. This is all the validation that's going to get applied to it. So they would come into here, and I would say, I'm an IoT hub. It's going to be France South. I don't think I've ever picked that one in my life. I didn't deselect project. I didn't add anything. Let's pick our UAT2, because that sounds fun. And it's the first instance of it. And I guess I put something in custom too, so I'll have to do ABC or whatever. And now it generated the name for me based off of that naming convention that was done. And it validated it, so it's less than 50, dashes are okay, whatever. So that is what can happen. So someone would take this and put it into their Azure portal when they're making that thing. And now you know that they're using a valid name that matches your naming convention. It has the ability to generate multiple things at one time. So let's pick a lot of random things, because that's never bad in a demo. So we're just going to pick, I don't know. I'm trying to pick something that would get like filtered out of like the thing. So here, and when you do this, it's going to require everything. So when I do this, it's going to apply that naming convention, whatever I pick for all of these items. So if you had a project, you could come in here, select all the resources for it, set your options, and it's going to generate them all at one time. So this is going to go to Germany, West Central, because let's pay the bills a little bit, I guess. I don't know. And this is going to be our production environment. I didn't select it.
Can you select storage account too? Or do we miss out on that?
No, you can get storage account. And you can filter. What do you want? You want a storage?
Yeah, just anything storage, blob is fine.
ST. So a lot of these we have reached out to the product team, and they've told us that's what the abbreviation should be. You can change that from not being ST, but that's what the product teams have told Jason they should be.
And I'm
So,
assuming that matches up with like our documentation on CAP.
yes,
That's what
but none of it is in sync. Jason reaches out like to every product group individually, and he's like, I don't know what he does. That's what he works on mostly, is trying to get that data updated, and it's constantly changing, and none of it's consistent.
Yeah.
So, all right, so now we have a storage account in there. So let's go to Japanese, because it's the first one I see. And this is our prod environment, sure. And then we'll just say it's the first instance for all of these. And I forgot I had this in here too, so we'll just whatever. So it's going to generate these, and now it just generated all of those names. But if you look at this one, that delimiter is not allowed for certificate order, whatever that is. You can't use a dash, so it automatically filtered that out, and then it validated and it still produced it. Same thing there. If any of these have been a duplicate, it would have said this one's a duplicate, and unless you have duplicates enabled, you can't do that. So this is what the tool does. This is essentially what it does. Someone has come in, they've done the configuration, your users go to it, and they use it to generate the names. Yeah. I was about to jump to there. You can export this list to CSV, but all the names have been stored in here to show you the options. I'm trying to go all the way down. There's the IoT hub. So when it was created, the name was created, what it was, and the options that were selected. Now I have a change of the tool that I'm actively testing that if you have identity enabled in wherever you're hosting the site, it's a little bit complex. I don't have time to get into it. You would actually see who created it too. That's not there yet. That's not there in the current version. But yes, this is the default. I can delete these because I'm logged in as the admin. So if I were to log out, I can still see this log. I just can't do anything in it. And I can't change the configuration. All I can do is look at what the current configuration is. So I can't change anything. I can only look at it. And then they can generate stuff. Lastly, because I know I'm running short on time because I talk too much, there's a full API behind the scenes. If you wanted to automate anything, it's got a Swagger page, and you can enjoy all the excitement of calling APIs if you want to do that.
Is the idea behind the API really you set it up initially, and then I, as a developer, whatever you can call that, and get my names?
Yes. Okay. A lot of people. So when I first did it, there was no requirement for an API. I just thought, if I'm doing something, I'm already rewriting it, I put all the functionality into a service of like generate name, and there's an object that it gets passed that says these are all the properties of it. I made that into a service. The web page calls that service, and then I just made an API that calls the same service. And the idea that what I've seen in talking to people is they'll use something like ServiceNow or a ticket system or something where someone's like, I need this. And they have like some sort of automation that happens, or like a logic app that does something, and then it could call into the API, get the name, and then use that to do some, infrastructure as code stuff to go generate it. Like that's why I built it. I don't know if anyone uses the API. I have one person that did because they broke it, and I had to put in like tests to try to make it better. But that's what a lot of it is. I mean, that's what I build it for. But a lot of times people ask for things. I'm like, okay, I just build it because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I build it. If it doesn't take anything away, then so it just makes the tool better, and maybe someone uses it and they like that. So, okay. I am like 8 minutes now. Man, I talk too much. All right, so is there anything else? I kind of did the highlights here. If you want to use the tool, I'm going to put this up in a second. There's a AKS link, Azure Naming Tool, and that will take you to the GitHub repo for this tool. And on that repo, which I've shown you a little bit of this, it's kind of odd. The tool is inside of the Cloud Adoption Framework, which is enormous. We don't love it. It might leave there one day. It's in our backlog to reroute that, but as of right now, it's in here. But I've tried to document every aspect of this tool. There's an overview, and it kind of gives you, of all things, an overview. But there's a really good video that someone did for us on using the tool. It's quite dated. It's probably a year plus now, so you'll see differences. Not anything all that different. It just does a lot more than what this guy's name is, Dean Cefola. And he did a real good, it's called Azure Academy. He does a lot of videos. He did a video for us, which we're really happy about. So that's there. If you're very curious about the underlying development, I wrote a blog that deep dives into what's the steps that it goes through to generate a name, and kind of how the tool's put together. Even that's a little dated now because it's constantly evolving. But more importantly, there is an installation page. So we have detailed documentation on how to install it. The repo has a GitHub action already inside of it. And so if you do some setup on your side, you can then just enable that you fork the repo and then you create stuff in Azure and then make some GitHub secrets, and it's all in the documentation, and then the GitHub action will deploy for you. Or if you wanted to run it as a container, we walk you through that, or a container app. Or if you just want to do a standalone site, you could do that. Or if you want to run it locally, because again, we don't know how someone's going to use this. So we tried to make it as universal as possible. We have some documentation about how to apply an update, and it really depends on how you're running it. GitHub Action is the easiest. You just sync your repo, and then your action will actually pick it up that it's done, and it will send it. But we talked very clearly about backing up, so that's all inside of there as well. And then we have some documentation on using the API. It's not very extensive. It just kind of explains how the API functions, but that could certainly use some more build out. I've done the release notes. We have FAQ. So I try to get the biggest questions that people have. What is it? Why would you need it? Who's it for? And it's really for admins and ITs. I mean, that's who's using this. It's someone who's in charge of whatever you have deployed in Azure. Because whoever needs to know what everything in Azure is, that's who needs this tool. And they set it up, they configure it, and then you expose that URL to your users. You decide who you want to expose it to, and then they generate names. And you know that the names that they're generating will match your naming convention if you're the one setting it up. There is no cost. And again, we talk about how to back up, how to restore, things like that. And I would be remiss if I did not, acknowledge and thank. These are all the different people that have worked on this tool in some regard. Your own Brian McKeever has helped me with a lot of development because I've asked him very specific questions. Sorry, what was your question?
I saw Jeff Mitchell on there.
Oh, Jeff. Do you know Jeff?
Yeah.
He lives like 3 minutes away from me. He's like, I see him all the time. Yeah, I used to work with him a couple companies ago. Oh yeah, yeah. Him and his wife Candy, she's amazing. So yeah, these are all the different people that have helped work on this tool. We should talk about that more. He's like one of my really good friends. So, all right, I'm just gonna jump back to this for at least the end, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions. What am I doing? I think it's stopped. So, if you want to get started, you can hit that URL. It takes you right to the GitHub. The overview page will kind of guide you, and then the installation will kind of walk you from there. But you're just basically going to choose an installation method and then run it. Then you're going to set your admin password. It's going to prompt you to do that before you do anything else. You have to set the admin password. You configure it, and then you just get people to use it. It's a very basic tool, and it really is designed just to fill a need that we saw. One day, in the magical world of make-believe, you're in the Azure portal, and you go to create something, and it is already hitting an Azure naming tool that your admin's already set up. One day. Not today. But if you want to know more, you could totally reach out to me too. And if you had questions about how it works, I'm probably a good person to ask because I wrote every line of code in that thing. Except for the regex. I don't do the regex. I wrote regex equal match or no match, and Jason regards that. But no, it's really all through here. It's through the issues. But if you want to reach out to me personally, I can absolutely give Brian my information to propagate it to. I was going to put it in the slide directly, like my emails, but I don't know how they're going to be shared or whatnot. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on it. And then you can celebrate. Any questions? No. You asked them along the way, which is really nice because I like questions. Otherwise, it's just me talking. Blazor server because I hate JavaScript. I'd never done either. And when I made it, I was like, well, it's a hackathon. Let's try this out. Yeah. And so I did Blazor server because I absolutely hate JavaScript. I've learned a lot about Blazor server. I can tell you there are some really good things and there's some very challenging things.
So I like the naming convention. Everybody needs that. I get it. But I'm almost more interested in seeing a working product for Blazor server. So that's
I mean, the code's there. I'll be glad. We can dig into. I'll be glad to show you stuff. I wasn't sure. He was just tearing it up today because I was like, "What's my code?" And he was telling me a lot. It's funny because again, it's not like I'm the world's greatest developer. But I've learned a lot over the years, and I really try to approach this almost like a product manager. and the developer of the product. So I'm kind of both. But I really try to treat it like it's a first-class citizen, and I really try to have a logical way that I release things and the way they're documented. And that collectively, Jason helps. We work together. We meet every Tuesday, and we talk about what's in our backlog, what are we going to do, and we kind of work on stuff. And it's almost always, what are you building, Brian? And I'm building this and this and this. But we also try to address needs of the community. But I also do it to learn, like, and to keep my own skills up. And I'm mostly glad I chose Blazor Server. Mostly. There's some aspects that are like, whoo. And actually, we've had one PR request where a guy wrote, it was about a month ago, and he's like, you are refreshing this page like a million times. You need this better code. And so he gave us a PR. And so I'm like, I don't know if it's right or wrong. So I kind of looked at it and I tested it. I'm like, looks good. And so actually, I did test it. But actually, that's one person that we've ever had contribute to it. I understood what he did. I just didn't know enough about Blazor Server to know to not do what I did before. But what he showed me, I'm like, oh, I see what he's saying. So Blazor Server is a real interesting thing. You get one initial request to the application, and then everything else is Signal R that's happening. And it's really easy to just anything change, anything change, anything change, anything change. Like it does that almost. So you have to like be really careful on the life cycle, and it can get very confusing. It stays confusing for a few years, and sometimes you never know the answer. But I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to make it better. I know. Contribute to the tool, make it better. Please help. No, but no, that's the tool. I really hope you would check it out. We have a feedback button. We haven't gotten feedback yet, but we've always loved feedback. And if there's anything we can do, I mean, all the stuff you saw me pull up in the GitHub in the project, that is directly related to someone with an issue. And they said, this why can it do this? And we're like, it doesn't do that right now. And then I worked in the backlog, and then eventually I was able to develop and do it. And so we're just trying to make the tool better, and we're really just doing it to help the community and to try to make the world a better place, I guess. So you can understand what's in Azure. But awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and let's go to Bridge Street. Something like that. So awesome. Appreciate it.
Would love it if people want to suggest topics they want to see. Possibly Blazor could be a topic. Who knows? For any future meetups. So please do that. We have more swag that you're welcome to take. A couple t-shirts of different sizes. Kim knows the sizes if you need help. What are these again? Do we know? I don't want to call them the wrong things.
They look like Azure Spheres.
Azure Spheres. IoT devices.
That's what it looks like to me.
Azure IoT kits. So take one if you don't have one, and some stickers. But I want to thank Cameron and K Group for hosting. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Matt for recording with the technology and everything, get us going. So we actually, thanks to Matt also, I believe, have a YouTube channel named after us. Yeah, you want it's it would be YouTube search for West Michigan Azure User Group because
should be West MIAUT.
And we have your talk on there, right? Or was it John's? John's.
Yeah, we didn't get mine.
Okay.
I'll just have to do
That was a try. Yeah. So we have John's talk from last month around load testing. So if you missed the load testing talk, that was really cool. We're going to try to use that more at BizStream. So this talk will be on the channel. If you can get there. Boy, it's working off his phone all the way down to Florida and back, apparently. But there it is. So we have a channel. So please subscribe, follow, like, smash that like button on the best Azure videos you'll see, at least in the West Michigan area. But really, that's it. So last couple of minutes, feel free to chat, talk about naming. Be curious how everyone does it if you want to talk about it. Something I have to do often for our clients. We suggest naming conventions. So I'm very excited. In fact, I installed this earlier today with Brian's help at BizStream, and we'll be using it more going forward. So anything else? Mike, Kim, Matt, do you want to add? Or
no, that just spawned an idea for the app potentially is multi-tenant, so you can somebody like Brian can use it for one instance and use
So he can, and we discussed it. We discussed how he could do it.
Maybe repeat the
The question was about how to use the Azure Naming Tool for multi-tenancy, like multiple clients, or could it do it? And really, the way I would do it is you could use the built-in like orgs or something, or you can make your own custom component called client and put in all your clients. And then the difficult thing becomes like the project. If you're using the project name in the convention, then you'd have a list of all of your projects names, like all of your clients' projects names. Now, bear in mind, this isn't public. This isn't anything anyone can see. This should be behind security to where only authenticated users would ever be able to see it. But you would have a list of all of their projects in one thing. But let's say you were to be rather generic with your clients and be like website, backend, I don't know, whatever it is. You could have a list of the project that it applies to, and therefore you choose the client, choose the project, choose the type, choose the location, and then you could do that. And it absolutely would keep track of all that. Yes, you could do it.
Would it be smarter to do multiple in implementation per client though, potentially?
I was talking to our friend Brendan earlier about this. And when I made the tool, I never contemplated, it's always like your company is going to use the tool. I never contemplated a company that's going to use the tool to make names for other things. And so as of right now, there's no limitation, but then there's also there's nothing that would make that easier for you, as opposed to just having a list of the projects and having a list of the clients. And you would have to know that these projects are for this client. And that's not very good. And so I've already started to think about how I could almost have a filtered list of projects based off of the client, but I don't know. That's version 3, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's not native in the tool right now, but it's something I recognize today after talking to him. Yes.